Welcome, friends, to another installment of Strange Planet. And of course, as I always say, it is a strange planet far stranger than we can even conceive of. If you'd like to get deeper into Strange Planet, you can become a premium subscriber. It's real easy to do. Just click on the link in the episode notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. There are three premium subscription choices to choose from. You gain access to commercial-free listening, bonus episodes that are produced exclusively for premium subscribers, plus you get a subscription to my monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. All right, on this episode, we are going to delve into a relatively new science, pretty avant-garde stuff that was, I guess, first developed in the 1960s, as I understand. You're going to kind of learn along with me because it's pretty heady stuff. I'm just learning about it. It's called geospatial intelligence analysis. And two gentlemen who are really on the forefront of this new science are with me to tell us how they utilize it for their business clients. Bret Schoening has worked in many fields before finding his calling as an intelligence analyst. He's been a deep sea diver, an oil field rigger, a carpenter, a farmer, a criminal intelligence specialist, a GIS project manager, a business intelligence analyst, and an entrepreneur. He found his true calling later in life and made a career change into geospatial intelligence. Bret attended American Military University, where he earned a degree in intelligence studies with a concentration in geospatial intelligence and a professional certificate in regional and community planning. He graduated magna cum laude. As a GIS project manager, he's worked for a large U.S. Utility in the field of vegetation management. He's an expert in LiDAR application and asset management at an enterprise level. Bret, welcome to you. How are you?
Thank you, Richard. I am very well. It is an honor to be here.
Nick Francis is a distinguished graduate of Radford University, holding a major in geospatial science and a minor in geology. In recognition of his achievement in the classroom and versatility in the field, he earned the Department of Geospatial Science Dean's Scholar Award. Additionally, Nick graduated with distinction as a dendrochronology research scholar, showcasing his dedication to advancing environmental and temporal understanding through the intricate study of tree rings. Nicholas has a highly knowledgeable and accomplished professional in the realm of geospatial science and geographic asset management. He's an avid outdoorsman and enjoys spending his free time fishing, kayaking, and hiking. Nick Francis, welcome to you.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be here.
And the company is Modern Geo. Do I have that right?
That is correct.
All right.
Modern-geo.net.
Modern-geo.net. All right, let's just dive in. We're going to need a primer here and a little bit of hand holding because this is pretty. It's fascinating, but it's beyond my my knowledge base, certainly, which is kind of exciting for me. I like to expand my horizons, certainly. So, if you were to explain geospatial intelligence to someone who knew nothing about it, in the most sort of simple vernacular that you can use, how would you describe it? Either of you can jump right in here on any of my questions. So go ahead.
All right. Well, I tend to kind of be the teacher among us, so I'll take this one. And I can say that geospatial intelligence is a rather new science. It follows along with the digital revolution, especially with the movement from the digital revolution into cloud. Cloud has allowed us to transfer data faster and easier, thus allowing us to make better analysis. Now, let's kind of take a little step back here. Geospatial is geo, Earth, spatial, size plus location. So when you put geospatial together, it is the understanding of the size and location of things or events, we call these features, on the Earth. If you think about human life, what do we do that does not in some way, shape, or form interact with the surface of the Earth. So our science is to create data sets and analyze these data sets in a geospatial fashion. This is a subset of the science of geography. Now, most Americans, most Westerners even, are fairly unfamiliar with geography beyond pretty landscapes and maybe political boundaries. That's kind of fourth grade is where we really stop learning about it. But geography, I submit to you, Richard, is the science to rule them all. There's my nerd coming out. Now, the reason I say this is because look at CERN. CERN is a magnificent piece of technology. Millions of people have come together throughout the globe to bring this from concept to fruition, and yet geography is forgotten. Why was CERN located where it is? Well, it's because of the geology, it's because of the political boundaries. It was the most opportune location for that facility. Geography is the science that helps determine that. So, geography, for those taking notes in radio listening land, is the science which is the fusion of natural science and sociology. It is why we do what we do, where we do it. Geospatial science is the subset that is a data analytics in which we compile the why we do what we do, where we do it, into very digestible reports that give the end user or the stakeholder a command decision information product.
So it's a predictive tool?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right. Nick, did you want to jump in and add anything to that?
So I add a little bit to it. Bret pretty much covered the general idea of it. I like to explain to people. It's not going to be as in depth as Bret's response, but I like to explain to people when they ask me what geospatial science is I explain it as geography with the assistance of computers. So using computer programs, using computer data sets, we can add that fourth dimension to what is generally two-dimensional, sometimes if you're lucky, three-dimensional data set.
Okay. How does it differ from traditional data gathering? So I think the term is it tabular?
Yes. So that's an excellent question. Now, for our profession, we are business intelligence. We help businesses through geographic science make better decisions. So let's kind of steer towards that because there's a really good example here. Most people, you have one of the most intelligent audiences in podcasting. So a lot of your listeners are going to understand what Power BI is. They are going to know what Excel is. They're going to understand that there are tools out there that people use to create charts, create graphs, compare numbers and data mathematically to produce insights. That is tabular data. So where does geospatial fall into this? How does it compare? Well, tabular data is the basis of everything we do. We use spreadsheets to create data analysis. What we do is, let's say, for example, and this is one of the things that we do for our clients. We have a client where they use our product and they collect information on what construction project needs to be built. So they actually go out and they use a mobile device, just a regular phone with a GPS connection, and they trace out an area. That area now has a length, a width, and an area measurement. That goes into a spreadsheet. That becomes an XY coordinate. And so that now becomes spatial data. So you have tabular data, which has a lack of a spatial component, but now you have spatial data. If I put any notes onto that polygon that they have created in the database, then that becomes geospatial data, and I can extrapolate that data in analysis against other polygons, other features, and I can start drawing analysis from that data set.
You have this metaphor that you've created on I saw on your LinkedIn page where you're drawing on this example of a building architecture, for example, to illustrate the difference between tabular data and what you do in geospatial intelligence analysis. Can you draw that metaphor for us once again?
Sure. So let's be clear for everyone out there. This is not necessarily an architecture-based example. We're just going to extrapolate the concepts. So if you want to build a building, you can go to an architect and they can draw you up plans. They can give you blueprints, and the blueprints have all of the pieces, parts. It has the instructions. It has the location of where the building should be placed inside the parcel of land. It's a very complete data set by itself. It is very valid. But Richard, what would you say if I told you I can hand you a set of VR goggles? I can take that data in that blueprint that you have. I can translate it into a method in which you, without the aid of a computer, so your eyes, your ears, your body, can easily digest this and you can interact with that. That is all of a sudden taking that blueprint and giving it that boost to the next level. And that's what we mean when we say you take two-dimensional data and you put it into 4 dimensions. So you not only have length, width, height, but you also have time. That extra context allows you to grasp more deeply the insights. And in this particular example, let's say that my family, we learned how to cook to offset costs. And so we do everything from scratch. When we bought our house, we looked at the plans, but we couldn't really, until we walked into the finished house, we couldn't really tell if the island was going to impede us in the kitchen. In this metaphor, you get to do that before you ever even build the house. And so that's the advantage of geospatial data. It's a different way of visualizing tabular data.
The origin of this science, going back to the 1960s, I'm just going to go out on a flyer here and suggest maybe, and I know, you're that you attended the American Military University, Bret, but was this developed for military geopolitical purposes, this science?
Yes with an if and no with a but. And by that, I mean this. Geospatial intelligence has been around since the very first troop movements were recorded in journals, sent to a headquarters, plotted on a map, and then the brass of that military looked at flank A, flank B, and what their movements were, and then figured based on the geography of the area where those troops would go, how are they going to counter these movements. And so that can go all the way back into antiquity. Now, modern geospatial science, what we're talking about now, the first GIS, and for those of you, especially Canada has a wonderful, because of your system, they have a wonderful setup with government where they funded a lot of this thing, a lot of these programs. GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, and this is where when you log onto your local government webpage and you find property records, you find floodplains, public data like that, that's GIS. That started in the 1960s. That was when the first computer was purpose-built to actually display tabular data in a geographic frame.
All right. And since then, I'm guessing it's been aided by satellite technology and bringing it right up to speed today, artificial intelligence.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing that Nick and I have worked with extensively is what is called remote sensing. And that's kind of a buzzword right now, especially with the proliferation of drones. One thing that I think your listeners will find very interesting, there's two types of data collection with remote sensing. There is literal and non-literal. Now, literal is exactly what it sounds like. You don't need a computer to translate what's coming in. So that could be an infrared image, that could be just a regular photograph, but you can look at the data on a screen and you don't need a computer to translate. Then you have things like radar or LiDAR, which is radar with lasers, and that is really cool. Nick and I have worked on a team where we can actually tell the age, size, and species of the tree at 500 feet, 175 miles an hour with lasers. It is quite literally Captain Picard telling Mr. Data, I want to know what's on that M-class planet. That's the type of stuff that we're now capable of doing. AI is absolutely a part of this science. There is still a massive amount of coding that is required to make these things happen, because we like to say GIS or geospatial science is limited only by your imagination, Richard. That's it. Your imagination. If you can figure out how to code it and you have the requisite data, you can do it. You can make it happen. So AI is a huge thing. And as AI grows, geospatial is going to grow, especially considering, believe it or not, you use geospatial science every single day. In fact, most of your listeners use it every single day and you don't even realize it. Case in point, Google Maps.
Right, right.
And so as AI grows, these applications are going to become more and more common.
I'm going to throw this one to Nick, and that has to do with how this. Well, let me back up. There's a term. I don't know if this is your term, Brett, or Nick's, or whether and this is unique to modern Geo, or whether this is just kind of used in the industry. But there's a term called the witchcraft paradox in describing what it is, what geospatial intelligence is. Can you explain what is meant by the witchcraft paradox?
So that's a great question, Richard. And the witchcraft paradox is exactly as it sounds. What we do in geospatial science, what we've kind of explained a little bit in the past couple of minutes, is something that a lot of people don't understand or they don't think about on a regular basis. So when we go to somebody that isn't familiar with the technology and what we do and tell them, hey, we're geospatial analysts or we work with geospatial data and we can do this, and this. And they're like, well, how do you do that? Sometimes explaining to them what it is that we do is more difficult than explaining the end product. So that's where the witchcraft paradox comes into play, because a lot of times what we do is so complex, both on the analysis end and on the computer processing end, that trying to dictate that to somebody who isn't familiar with the processes will wind up raising more questions than it's going to answer.
And it does sound, like magic, right? What was it?
Exactly. And that's the thing is, somebody looks at it and you're like, well, how'd you do that? It must be magic. In some cases, it feels like that because we run processes that can turn one set of data into something completely different in 5 minutes. And knowing how it works and knowing how to explain it sometimes can be two very different skill sets.
I think, Brett, you put it to me this way when we sort of initiated our correspondence over email. Witchcraft paradox is identifying a problem you didn't know you have, solving it with technology you didn't know exists. There's a third part, and I've forgotten that.
And using methods that you don't understand.
There you go.
And that is in no
That's what it
way,
is.
It's in no way meant to be condescending to anyone. But think about this. My grandparents both served in World War II. My grandfather was, after the war, he became an aeronautical engineer, and he ended up actually working on the Blackbird, the SR-71. And so he couldn't talk about most of what he did. Towards the end of his life, now this is circa 2005, 2006, we were watching an episode of Star Trek. If no one can figure out, I love Star Trek, and so they're using these tricorders, and they're using these what we understand now as tablets. And I said, "Gosh, I wish I could live long enough to see that." And he just kind of looks at me and winks and goes, "Oh, you will." And as the family compared notes, we realized that Grandpa knew an awful lot more about technology than he was ever allowed to let on. And he took all those secrets to his grave. But without someone like that, think about this. If I told you that I could hand you a handheld device that is lighter than a carton of cigarettes, and you could access all of human knowledge at your fingertips, connect to anybody. You could have group chats going on with hundreds of people at the same time. You could listen to radio hosts anywhere in the world at any time you want. And you're a radio man on the beaches of Normandy in World War II. You may have the ability to understand the concept, but if you're not someone like my grandfather back at that time who was dealing with advanced technology, it's just going to go right over your head. And so people have the ability to understand the concept, but even when Apple had hinted that they were coming out with the iPhone, that smartphones were just on the horizon, what did we all say? Yeah, you're so full of it. No way. And now here we are. We're living in the future. And so that when we say we identify problems you didn't know you have, we use tools you don't know exist, and we use analysis you don't understand, it's not at all condescending. But what it is there has to be a shift in the general. It's not even a consciousness shift like what's happening now in the world, but it is there has to be an education shift for people to have an open mind, because like we said before, this is limited by your imagination. Open your imagination up and let it run free, and apply science to that, and now you have power.
I do want to talk about what you do for your business clients, but first I want to go to the second part of the witchcraft paradox. So the business part, identifying problems you don't know you have. We'll park that for a moment. I want to get right to the using technology you didn't know exist. Can you give us a couple of examples, either Bret or Nick, some technology that you utilize at Modern Geo that people have no clue even is out there exists?
Nick, why don't you take that one? You've kind of led point on this project.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that sense, using technology you didn't know exists, part of GIS is the information system. And within that information system, there are a variety of tools. We call them geoprocessing tools. And that's kind of an industry term for just basically application-based things. So you can plug your data in to one end of that tool. And within that application, there are certain algorithms, certain programs, certain patterns that run that can give you a different outcome based on which geoprocessing tool you use. So using the same data set, using the same input data set, the geoprocessing tools can give you, depending on what your desired outcome is, can give you a variety of different results. So say, for example, if we're working with a client and they need to know how many points of interest are within, say, 10 miles of a school district, there is a geoprocessing tool that we can run for each school district that selects everything within that 10-mile radius. Another example I can think of is quite the opposite of that. As a matter of fact, it's a tool that when you run it, it deselects everything, or it highlights everything that you don't want within a certain space. Or if you have an area that you don't want to be selling, if you have an area that you don't want on your radar, we can run processes that select everything within that and rid them of the data set.
Nick, why don't you ran a point on a process like that for a mailing list that we produced. Could you go over that a little bit?
Absolutely. So what we did for Modern Geo, this our client originally had an area of interest with approximately 6,500 addresses. And with those addresses, you can go to the post office and order a mailing list. And of course, all of this costs money, about $1.75 for printing, 5 cents per address. You're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $12,000 to send a mailing list to each of those addresses in that 6,500 list area. But what our client runs into is spending that $12,000, they only ever see at best a 2% return on investment. And an average is significantly below that.
So 2% of the 6,500 potential customers who are actually converted into an actual customer.
That is correct.
A converted sale to a completed contract. That's correct.
That is correct. So with the things we do in Modern Geo, image classification and economic research, we kind of pare that address list down and build an algorithm to look for and find the ideal customers that our client is looking for. And in that list of 6,500 addresses, we identified about 200 targets. And in that 200 targets, in 1 month, our client has seen about an 8.2% return on investment. So pound for pound, this data set that we have provided using geospatial tools, using geospatial intelligence, is significantly more accurate, significantly more efficient than your standard mailing list.
So you're reducing costs because you're restricting the size of the mailing list, and
that is correct.
And you're increasing profits or revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give you some numbers here, Richard. So with the original mailing list of 6,500 addresses, you would be spending about $12,000 versus the list of 200 points of interest that we give you. That would, including similar costs for mailing and postage, you would be spending about $700. And each point of interest gives you approximately $15,000 in revenue. So $700 for 200 points at an 8.1% conversion rate versus that 2% at best off of $12,000 investment.
Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. So can you give us a sense of how you do that? How do you take a mailing list of 12,500, shrink it down to 200? How do you identify the most likely to be converted into a sales contract?
So
go ahead, Bret.
That's kind of where my experience comes in. So I'm trained as a U.S. intelligence analyst, and what I like to tell people is I'm trained to hunt bad guys with maps. One of the things you do is if you want to find some bad guy that is hanging out with his buddies, maybe you can find his car, and he drives a very specific car. And so you go over your satellite data and you look for every car that matches that description. And that becomes what's called an indicator. So now you use that indicator and you say, okay, now his buddies drive this car, and we know that they only like to hang out at villas. So you add those indicators to your analysis. What we did with this is I sat down and I said, hey, Nick, our client needs recession-proof customers. people that have enough money, because this is a construction client, they do home renovations. So they need to have enough money that if a recession really takes hold, like it looks like it's about to, especially because we're entering the third season that Ukraine has not planted grain, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the global market. And if China goes to war with Taiwan, well, we kind of see where this is going. So how do we position our client with this mailing list to set up? So we said, well, all right, let's look at their past data. And so I pulled that because I deal pretty much primarily with the clients. And so we said it's $300,000 is the total assessed value of the property. Anything below that, they tend not to make enough money to make it worthwhile. So at $300,000 and above in their particular area, we started looking for homes that are single family homes. They have 4 peaks on the roof or more. Because if you have just a regular think when we drew houses in kindergarten, right? That's a starter home. Those are people that are just trying to get by. That's not somebody that has money to spend. So you want to look for large homes. You want to look for angular roofs where you have a line going and then it cocks off at a 45-degree angle. So you have, say, a wing of a house. That indicates that this home has money to spend because it takes a lot of money to upkeep a structure like that. We looked for outbuildings. We looked for excess pavement. Do they have a circular driveway? Do they have landscaping that we can see from space? Are they next to a lake? Is it lakefront property? But the number one most valuable indicator that we found was in-ground pools. If you have an in-ground pool in North Carolina, you have money to spend. North Carolina tends to be a fairly impoverished state. So we pulled all that together and I handed it over to Nick and I said, Nick, I want you to build out the database with these indicators. And then we went about we programmed, and here's where you came in with AI. Remember, this is AI application. We programmed an AI and we said, we want you to look for pixel density of this, pixel color of that, and shape of these 2 features in this format. It spits out a list, and then we go through by hand and we comb through that list to make sure that what the computer spit out is what we need. This is also the little argument for folks that say AI is going to take my job. No, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you AI is not going to take your job because it handed me a tennis court at one point. I'm sorry, a tennis court is not an in-ground pool. So you still have to guide the machine a little bit. But that was how we ended up finding customers in this mailing list.
And Bret, let me interject with you there for a second. What you mentioned about AI taking your job, it's not the AI, like you mentioned, that will be taking the jobs. It is people that know how to use and leverage AI for their benefit that will be taking your jobs.
Absolutely.
Nick and Bret, we'll take a quick time out. We'll come back and continue to delve into this brand new science. Well, not brand new. It's been around for several decades, but it is absolutely fascinating. Geospatial intelligence analysis. Back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. We're back with Bret Schoening and Nick Francis from Modern Geo, modern-geo.net. Do I have that right?
That's correct.
All right, we've got the link in the episode notes. So we were talking about a business client, how you utilize certain tools, identify certain problems. Well, let's talk about the first part then. We talked about the tools. Let's talk about the unidentified problems people don't even know they have. So when a business comes to you, a client comes to you, if they haven't identified their problem, why do they come to you, and how do you help them identify the problem?
Well, and that is, so we function as a company. We are a very culture-driven company. We believe that we're speaking to the technology, and technology ultimately is cheap. What's expensive is the people that run the technology. It's the brain power to run that technology, and we see people as being the number one non-renewable resource. And so we are always very cognizant of when a company comes to us and says, hey, we want to improve our efficiency, because really, as geospatial analysts, this is what we do. We make you more efficient so you spend money more wisely and you shrink your shrink. So how do we identify those problems? The first thing is, and let's say a client we had came to us and said, and this is the construction client we just referenced. This is what I do. Great, fantastic. Are you sure? Well, I don't know. And so as we provide data-driven products and services, we have 4 segments inside that. Think of data-driven products and services as the riverbanks, and inside those riverbanks, we service data analysis, data management, strategic services, and most importantly, change management. Under change management, we figure out, who are you? What's your culture? Where are you going? What do you want to do? What do you specialize? What's your superpower as a business? And so they said, well, we deal in home renovation and we do mostly 3-season rooms. Fantastic. They do lanais, they do 3-season rooms, they do spa rooms, they do greenhouses, they do all kinds of stuff. But what is one of the biggest things that you're not looking at? And they said, well, I don't know. And I said, how much of your business is aluminum? Oh, well, over 90% of our business is in aluminum. It's aluminum extrusion, it's aluminum screws, it's aluminum siding. Aha. Okay, so we have a major problem here. We need to set you up so that in the event that the world supply of aluminum gets a crink in it, you're not going to be up you know what creek without a paddle. So they went, come on, no, Fred, no, seriously, let's come on. And I said, okay, hold on. So I came back a couple of days later and I said, here's the analysis I have. China, in the last 2, they've been working on this for the last 10 years, which, by the way, my thesis was on China and Chinese control of elements, specifically rare earth. So this is a topic near and dear to my heart. China has outplayed the rest of the world. And I mean, when I say outplay, they have outplayed us. They have almost a monopoly control on the world supply of aluminum. Now, Richard, what's aluminum used for? And maybe the better question is, what is aluminum not used for? We use it in dinnerware, we use it in technology, we use it in warfare. Oh, wait, warfare. What's China doing? They're rattling the saber against Taiwan. They're supporting the war in Ukraine. There is a current correction happening in the world markets as we speak right now. Stockbrokers, money market managers do not understand why we have such a strong economy when they say we should be in the middle of a huge recession. Is that media trying to whip up panic, or is that real? There's a great question. How does geospatial science tie this in with some small contractor in North Carolina? Let me share this. Russia, there's an old saying, never invade Russia in the middle of winter.
Napoleon.
Ukraine is not that far from Russia.
True.
And I can tell you for a fact that fighting in the cold when you got cold water running down your backside is very, very not fun. It's not good for an army. So what's happened in the war in Ukraine since Israel kicked up all that dust down the Middle East? Well, it's fallen off of the radar, right? But there's strikes happening in Russia that Ukraine is initiating. Russia is still pushing into Ukraine, but everything's kind of slowed down because it's wintertime right now. So, Richard, what's going to happen when springtime breaks? You mark my words, and I will make this prediction on your show right now. When springtime breaks, Russia is going to do what Russia always does to win a fight. They're going to throw blood at the problem. They're going to need aluminum to push that blood into the battlefield. They have strategic treaties with China. China has strategic goals to take Ukraine, to hold Ukraine. I guarantee that what is going to happen is that when the spring breaks, China is going to have a huge curtailing of aluminum products, and they're going to start pushing it into war efforts. That means that there is less on the global supply. The US, we outsourced all of our manufacturing overseas. Canada doesn't have a whole lot of manufacturing. South America, forget about it. So on this side of the world, we have all kinds of alumina, which is aluminum ore, but we don't have the processing facilities. Now, bringing that back down to the granular level to our client in the triad of North Carolina, that's Charlotte, Greensboro, Winston-Salem. How does that affect this small family business? And I'm going to tell you, they're not going to be able to buy at the same rate from their suppliers. They're going to have their business positioned in such a way that they take their 90% revenue from aluminum jobs. They're going to have to start putting that into what do we have? We have lots of oil. Canada, I do not see Canada becoming an enemy to the US anytime soon. We are family separated by a border. There are extremely rich oil reserves in both nations domestically. What can you make out of oil that goes into home remodeling? Oh, that would be vinyl. They happen to have vinyl. So our recommendation to this client, and they have started moving with this, is you need to start selling more vinyl. You need to start putting that into people's minds so that once the world stops turning on the aluminum markets, you're not stuck up a creek without a paddle.
Wow. That is geospatial intelligence. Bret, Nick, we'll take one final time out, come back and talk some more. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is, I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Bret Schoening and Nick French are with us from Modern Geo. Modern geo.net, geospatial intelligence analysts. If you were consulting the United States government, the State Department, about what is happening in China and their quest for economic, military dominance, first let's identify the problems. Nick, Bret, and either of you.
This is definitely my wheelhouse. My thesis in my degree, which my degree is the same degree they take at West Point, they take in Annapolis, or the CIA, the FBI, when they train an analyst, that's the program they go through. There's a couple problems with the US government right now. Number one is for the last 20-something years, we've been working on tactical intelligence. So tactical intelligence is, I hit you, you hit me. I hit you, you hit me. Strategic intelligence is, that Richard fella, I think he might hit me in the next 5 years. I need to make sure that I'm okay with this and that I can fight back. So think Cold War. That was strategic intelligence. That was long-term thinking. The war on terror is 100% tactical intelligence. And so we have this problem with a mental plasticity of leaders where we've all kind of grown up in this idea of cell-on-cell warfare. And there's a great book. If you can ever get the author on, I highly recommend you do. Michael Pillsbury wrote The 100-Year Marathon. And that is one of the pivotal books that I always point back to. And that 100-year marathon is where China has said, in 100 years from 1949, the revolutionary anniversary, they want to be on top of the world. So they have been pushing towards that. And I've said before that they have outplayed the West. They have done a magnificent job. They are China. If you're going to have an enemy, you want China because they're going to keep you on your toes. And they're doing a great job. So they realize in their culture that tactical intelligence is not the way that you have sustained victory. You have to go about victory in this mindset. There's a great quote from The Vor Game by Louis McMaster Bujold, a wonderful book. If you read it, it is a novel. One of the characters says, the key to strategy is not to choose a path that leads to victory, but to choose so that all paths lead to victory. Now, in American and very Western thinking, we just say, well, let's hit them hard and go home, right? Let's drop a bomb on them and we're done. But in the Far Eastern mentality, it's generational warfare. It's generational strategy. Let's push through. I'm not going to sit under this tree that I plant, but my great, great, great grandchildren will sit under this tree and enjoy it. That's their mentality. So China and the US are locked in what's called Thucydides trap. And that is a geopolitical term for two superpowers struggling to be on the top of the mountain. Obviously, that's not going to happen. You're going to have someone that is going to surmount the other, and the other generally crumbles and falls. That has been happening since the Peloponnesian War. So China has, let's look at what they have. They have manpower, they have manufacturing, they have done a really good job of tying up the metals markets, specifically rare earth. They've tied up petroleum markets. They have vassal states. They have strategic treaties all over Africa, all over South America. I mean, they practically built Brazil. I could spend an entire show talking about the analysis I've done on all of the migrant bands that went from Central America up to the American southern border. I don't think those were a mistake. I think those were an intelligence operation to figure out how far it would, or how long it would take to get foot soldiers from point A to point B. China has, back to China, they have the manpower, they have the manufacturing, they have the shipping, they have the oil, they have the rare earth. By their geography alone, in their domestic borders, China controls the better part of 80% of the known proven reserves of all rare earths on this planet. That's a major, major ace in their sleeve. Now, let me ask you something. Why should America be worried about this? And here's the simple answer. What happened when COVID struck? We had lockdowns, China stopped shipping things, and we had in the US, I don't know about Canada, but I know in the US, it was fairly well publicized, especially on social media. We had 3 weeks, roughly 21 days before people started storming state houses. It was not just because of quote unquote draconian lockdowns, it was because stores did not have essentials. It's very well understood that if you put a bunch of people onto an enclosure, you have roughly 3 days after food and water run out that people turn into absolute Lord of the Flies. So that's a concern. What happens if China embargoes the US like we did Cuba? Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, they're out of business in 3 weeks. What happens to our food stock? Walmart gets a massive amount of food from overseas. The places that produce our food rely on China. They rely on Chinese trade in order to produce that food. So we don't have the cottage industry. We don't have the manufacturing. We can't keep up with that. But people just in general, human beings are resilient. We're good at adapting. Some blood may be shed, but overall, when bad things happen, people tend to group together and become stronger. Well, that's a bad strategy if you're working in this generational strategic plan, right? So, what's going to happen if people band together? The US is going to launch attacks. They're going to start using military force because that is our primary superpower, is that we're going to use military force to loosen those trade restrictions. We will go and we will overtake what we need to. We will put occupation forces where we have to. We will make sure that the trade flows regardless. Except that we don't have trained soldiers, we have trained technicians. Now, don't get me wrong, we have a lot of very talented, very capable warfighters, but our primary strength is in our war machines. All of those war machines require electronics. Electronics require rare earth. Where is rare earth coming from? It's coming from China. So if I was going to advise the US government, I would say that number one, forget Tesla. Forget all of this electric car BS. That's all it is BS. It's not sustainable. You want to go for a renewable technology, you need to look into 0 point. You need to declassify that. You need to go that way. You need to look into hydrogen. Again, another show entirely. But you have to get the US military off of the dependence on rare earths. You have to find your own manufacturing and processing facilities domestically that you can secure, because here's the problem. We have only so much ordnance. We have only so many weapons. There are only so many flight hours that any A-10 can take before it has to be maintenance, and the avionics have to be pulled out and rebuilt. If we do not have the rare earth elements to replace that circuitry, we do not fight. So if I was going to advise the US government, I would say, number one, you're 40 years too late.
Wow. That's pretty dire.
It is. Number two, you need to start training your people to withstand a land invasion. This is where it gets really scary. And I know on your show, you have touched on this a number of times. The gentleman's name slips my mind, but he does the World Report.
World Affairs Brief, Joel Scout.
Yes, that's it. Yes, that gentleman. I have found his information as an analyst. I think his information is spot on. I 100% back him on all of his conclusions. One thing that he's mentioned is all of the artificial islands that China has taken in their colonial sprawl in the South Pacific. And, you know, Now the U.S. Navy, I do believe, is very well aware of this. I think that they, as well as the Navy of the Crown, understands this. However, why is China building man-made islands in the middle of God's country? They're not doing like Dubai and building hotels. They're putting a bunch of dirt in the middle of the ocean for apparently no reason. I can tell you this, China doesn't do anything for no reason. That's not their MO. They don't have the money. They have the manpower, but they don't have the money to pay the manpower, so they're not going to do it for no reason. There were some declassifications or leaks, however you want to look at that, that China has been working very hard on developing submarines which can transport. Some people say 300, some people say 3,000. We're not entirely sure, at least in the, and understand, I've never held a security clearance. I've never held a security job. This is all just research that I have done that is open source or on the deep web. But either way, even if you take 300 highly motivated, well-equipped special operatives, and you can land them on the West Coast, 300 special forces operatives, because keep in mind, you love your children the same way that I love my children. The only difference is you live in Canada, I live here. There is no difference between a Chinese citizen and us. We are all human beings. So when they have special forces and we have special forces, the only difference is who we're fighting for. Please keep that in mind. I can tell you for a fact that these operatives on our soil, if they start going for the utility grid, the water grid, they can create dilemmas. And in warfare, the goal is never to make problems. This is what people don't understand about warfare. You never want to give your enemy a problem. You want to give your enemy a dilemma. So if you're forcing your enemy to retreat, burn the village. Take away the food source, make sure the people starve and die, because now you have a dilemma. Do they go after you, or do they make sure the people are okay? Because if they let the people die, how are they going to be supported? That is a dilemma. And China excels at making dilemmas. So why is this so important that China is putting islands in the South Pacific? It is my professional opinion that those are not islands, those are submarine bases, because then these submarines can go from the mainland to the islands and drop operatives in the Western Hemisphere. That, my friend, is terrifying. So the US government needs to be working on trade. They need to be pulling back, and they need to be exploring our own domestic reserves of all natural resources. They need to bring manufacturing back. They need to increase the middle class by building small businesses. They need to take the dependence off of Chinese manufacturing, and they need to, most importantly, instill within I may shoot myself in the foot, a very soft generation that never has known strife, never has been hungry, never has had anything but a silver spoon in their mouth. This generation does not understand the value of the freedoms we enjoy. And so it is my recommendation that they start training people to withstand a land invasion, because the possibility of exhausting our ordnance, while it would take a while, is very real. And if we do not have proper rare earth elements to replenish that, a few nuclear weapons, a ground invasion force, you are looking at the end of our nation. It is an absolutely terrifying doomsday scenario. And unfortunately, it is more possible than any of us would care to think. And that is the part of geospatial intelligence people don't like. People don't like to say, hey, you're in danger, so you might not be able to have your $5 latte tomorrow.
Wow. You took my my breath away there. I lost my voice. Bret Schoening, Bret Schoening, and Nick Francis from Modern Geo. modern-geo.net for more information. I want to get Nick in here. I don't know, with some parting thoughts about. Well, I'll just turn it over to you. What do you want to tell us in the next couple of minutes here?
Well, yeah, going off a little bit of what Bret said, talking about maybe shooting himself in the foot, saying that the soft generation is coming up. Hard times build strong people. Strong people build easy times. Easy times create soft people, and thus the cycle continues. Take what you will out of that, do what you want with that information, but that's kind of the general theme of kind of what we're talking about, and part of geospatial science, part of geospatial intelligence is working to limit the damage caused by cycles like that.
Well said. Nick and Bret, thank you so much. You really opened my eyes. Fascinating. I'm glad I met you, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
It would be our pleasure, sir.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Hello, friends, and welcome once again to another edition of Strange Planets. And if you'd like to get a little deeper into Strange Planet, you might want to consider becoming a premium subscriber. It's real easy to do. Just click on the link in the episode notes, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. What do you get? You get access to commercial-free listening. I love my sponsors, but it's kind of nice to listen without interruption. You get access to special bonus episodes that are produced exclusively for premium subscribers, and you get a free subscription to my monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. All right. It has been, let's see, I would say probably 16, 17 years since I spoke with this next gentleman. And if you're into conspiracies, this is right up there with JFK. It's one of the granddaddies of all conspiracies. The idea that the Apollo missions to the moon were faked, a complete hoax. And we're going right to one of the key investigators in this field. Bart Sibrel is an award-winning filmmaker, writer, investigative journalist. He's produced television programs and documentaries for over 40 years. He's been employed by 2 of the 3 major U.S. networks, worked as a TV news reporter, produced segments for ABC, NBC, CBS. Bart regularly speaks as a guest commentator regarding the moon landing fraud, and he's appeared as such on NBC, Fox, CNN, HBO to discuss his films, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon and Astronauts Gone Wild. His latest book, Moon Man, is Bart's revealing memoir, recalling his harrowing journey investigating what really happened during America's famous Apollo missions. Bart Sibrel, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
Good, Richard. How about yourself? You know, you only look 15 years older.
That makes sense. Yeah, do the math. In fact, I think it was about the time that A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon came out. Maybe a couple of years after it came out. You were on one of my old terrestrial radio programs. Um, it'd be a nice crash course for people who are not quite up to speed on this. And I know on your website you give a beautiful, concise 3-minute kind of summation, everything you need to know in terms of why the moon landing was faked. Can you just kind of quickly run through that and get my listeners up to speed?
Sure, that video is on my website homepage, which is Sibrel.com, just my last name, S as in Sam, B as in boy, REL, Sibrel.com. It's a 3-minute video that I made, just kind of summarizing the points why it's not a theory that they faked the moon missions, it's an actual fact. And if you want, I can just run by those 4 proofs really quickly.
Yes, please.
In my opinion, each of these proofs would convict it in a court of law independently. And we have 4 times the evidence. So the first proof is this. If the moon landings happened in 1969, then that's the first time in the history of the world in which technology was greater in the past and in the future. But seeing how that's a scientific and historic impossibility, that means it was a bluff, like in poker. For example, today, with 54 years better technology, the farthest that NASA can send astronauts into space is only 1,000th the distance to the moon. That's why there's mannequins orbiting the moon in the latest mission. Funny, they could play golf and drive cars on the moon 54 years ago, but today they can't even land and they can't even send humans beyond Earth orbit, you see? And they did this with 1/1,000,000th the computing power of a cell phone. If you added up all the computing power of NASA in 1969, it was 1/1,000,000th of what's in your cell phone. So you're saying 54 years ago with 1/1,000,000th the computing power, and it was the only time that NASA has kept a schedule in the entire history of NASA. They've never been on schedule, not a single time, except the most complicated mission of all time. They were ahead of schedule. So 54 years later, the most industrialized nation on Earth, China, says it's going to take 15 years from today to have the technology to walk on the moon. But 54 years ago, it only took half that time. Isn't that interesting? So you can't have 1,000 times greater space traveling technology in 1969 than you can today. When the atomic bomb blew up, just 10 years later, it was 1,000 times more powerful. So if they could go to the moon on the first attempt with 1/1,000,000th the computing power of a cell phone, we would have been on Mars 10 years later. We'd be in another solar system by now, and there'd be bases all over the moon. The reason why people don't see this, Richard, is their emotional attachment to the event. I mean, whoever killed Kennedy, he's still dead. It's just a matter of who did it and why. 9/11, all those people are dead regardless of who did it and why. This is different. This is a positive lie. I talked to an aerospace professor at a major university who said even if an Apollo astronaut confessed on national TV that the moon landings were fake, he would still think he walked on the moon anyway. It is literally a god to people. So that's the first proof. This is the first time in history you have 1,000 times greater technology in the past and in the future, which is impossible, which means they didn't go in the story. Then go to Sibrel.com. You'll see a picture. You can insert it if you want, but it's shadows intersecting at 90 degrees from objects 5 feet apart. Well, just go out into the sunlight in your front yard, your parking lot at work when there's no clouds in the sky, and you'll see 2 trees, 2 telephone poles, 2 people. No matter which direction, they're always parallel. It's impossible for the shadows to intersect in sunlight because the sun is 1,000,000 times bigger than the Earth. It's going to cast shadows on the entire continent the same direction, or the moon. So when they intersect at 90 degrees from objects 5 feet apart, that means it's electrical lighting, which means they're not on the moon, which means they didn't go to the moon. So that proves it. You could prove the moon landing fraud with one photograph. Just take a jury outside, show them parallel shadows, come inside. Juries don't have courtrooms don't have windows most of the time, and you just bring in an electrical light, and you'll see if one person stands on one side of the light and the other person stands on the other side of the light, they throw converging shadows. You just proved the moon landings are fake with one picture that they claim was lit with sunlight when they intersect, which is impossible mathematically. So that proves it. Then, as showcased, and a funny thing happened on the way to the moon, which is on the homepage of Sabrel.com, a film that cost nearly $1 million that was financed by someone who builds rockets for NASA, who gave me the money because he knows the moon missions were fake, and he says this is, very unpatriotic of our country to have manipulated the citizens this way. We found classified footage dated 2 days into the Apollo 11 flight of them faking being halfway to the moon with a 1-foot model of the Earth. The lights come up, it's a 1-foot model. That's what convinced me. I considered it a theory that they didn't go until I found that footage. That would prove it in a court of law. And then lastly, Moon Man at Sabrel.com, a book that just came out. I read it myself in audio or Kindle or print. We have an eyewitness by the name of Cyrus Eugene Akers, who was the chief of security at Cannon Air Force Base in 1968. As the guy is dying, fearing the judgment of God, he confesses, first of all, that he's a murderer. The military police come in from the United States Air Force. They say, who did you kill? Because he killed a coworker at Cannon Air Force Base. They say, why did you do it? He said, well, we were sworn to secrecy under threat of death because they filmed Apollo 11 at our base June 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1968. President Johnson showed up the first of 3 days, stood beside the guy. He gave him a list of 15 people who were allowed in to observe. We printed that list in the book. And so that was the main thing he wanted to confess, just that he killed somebody. And the reason why was because his friend thought it was morally wrong, was going to tell a reporter, and he killed him to keep it a secret. So that's the fourth proof. I wish it were a theory. It seems like a theory. Oh, they did, fake the moon landing, but they did. What does that mean? It means our country is so far gone. Why did Clinton say he had the affair? Do you remember why, Richard? Because he could get away with it, because I could.
Right.
And this is a completely unnecessary lie. Now, if Robert Kennedy Jr., who has more access to the JFK files than Oliver Stone, says the CIA killed his uncle, guess who killed his uncle? So that means the CIA, I think that's called election interference, don't you think? And that's not by Russia. That's by the United States federal government against a Democrat. They killed him. Then Robert McNamara, defense secretary during the Vietnam War, said the public was against it. So we got together with the CIA, said we need a Pearl Harbor type of thing, and we completely manufactured this alleged attack from North Vietnam on an American ship in the Gulf of Tonkin. Congress passed a law called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution based on a CIA fabrication. Said out of his own mouth, it never happened. Led to the death of 3 million people, including 58,220 Americans. So if they're willing to kill their own president, willing to kill 58,000 of their own soldiers, I don't think they have a problem faking an image of the moon on television. So that's my opening statement. Thank you for your patience.
The case rests, Your Honor.
There you go.
I want to come back and pick up on the testimony of Eugene Akers. I just want to talk a little bit more about. Well, let me jump ahead because you sent me something. You sent me an email, and it's a video on YouTube. It's about advanced AI is able to detect that the moon pictures are fake. Can you tell us a little bit about how AI is disproving these?
Yeah, this just came out. That's probably why I sent it to you. This is on my homepage. Just scroll down at Sabrel.com. There's an article about it, and it shows the video. So they have these conventions. For me, it was broadcast TV conventions in Vegas, see the latest camera every year. Other people, it's automobiles. You go and see the automobile that can get 150 miles per gallon, but somehow it's never sold commercially. But you can see it and sometimes test drive it, right? So they have AI conventions. What's the latest and greatest AI? This was just a couple of months ago in Moscow, right? So because it's in Moscow, Vladimir Putin is there, plus all the other top AI leaders. So what they did was, to make the latest and greatest AI, they took a bunch of individual AIs and they hooked them up together like cells in a brain. It's called the neural network. Cost millions and millions and billions of dollars by Google, a decade worth of research into this thing. And they gave access like a test drive. You want to test drive the 150 mile per gallon car? You have 3 days, go drive it around the track, right? So they let these various teams from AI people test the world's greatest AI. Some said compose a novel with this as the plot, or write a symphony with these notes, write a poem, draw a picture. Well, one team fed it photographs from the Chinese probes that are on the moon that landed a couple of years ago. And this particular AI has a specific deep fake detection program. You know, there are these videos that look like Obama or Trump or whoever, but they're really not them, right? This computer has never been wrong. It always knows the difference between a real picture and a fake picture. So they fed it, this team, pictures of the moon surface from the Chinese probes, and it said they were real, 100% real, 100% sure. Then, in comparison, they fed it pictures from the Apollo moon landings, and all the areas of the picture were red. The background is fake, the foreground is fake, the astronaut is fake. It was a model. It was a doll in this particular, the footprints weren't the way a human walked. They were stamped in there with a little toothpick because they wanted this vast landscape, so it was a miniature. It proved that the moon landings were fake. Now, why is this not reported on RT or Fox or anywhere? In fact, if you track down the original link of the Russian story, it warns you that if you click on it to read the article, all the data on your computer will be stolen and you'll be associated with child pornography. That's how desperate they are. Fox contacted me, I think, like a year ago, because a year ago, the former director of the Russian Space Agency, NASA's equivalent, publicly said, and I think he wasn't supposed to, the moon landings of the Americans are fake. Well, Fox News calls me up the next day. We're going to do an hour-long special. And they tell me they were very honest. They said, we haven't read your book, we haven't watched your movies, and we will conclude that the moon landings are real. That's the point of the program, to put out the fire that happened the day earlier of the Russian NASA equivalent saying the moon landings are fake. And in this hour-long special, I only did it because they paid me, right? Yeah, make a fun out of me for a couple of $1,000. Yeah, pay my rent. They quoted a guy from 1969, some Russian scientist in 1969 said that congratulations, and that's what they showed in the hour-long special. They did not choose to show what was quoted a few weeks earlier of the former director of the Russian Space Agency saying they were fake. Now, if that's not selective editing, I don't know what is. So Fox News is not anti-corruption. Glenn Beck isn't either. He had me on radio for 10 minutes, and then the next segment is an hour of video of a lying Apollo astronaut who's, associated with multiple homicides. And Glenn Beck kisses the guy's feet, says he's a national hero. It's like, in Glenn Beck's mind, I know America has gotten bad, but at least we went to the moon.
Right.
Isn't that something? And this is a topic too hot for even the top 2 podcasters. Won't talk about it for some reason. We have an eyewitness. We have Cannon Air Force Base. We have a list of 15 people who were there, and we verified multiple people were there at the time.
When you say
would
the
think
top,
that would make the news of the top podcast. They're afraid to talk about it, and yet they claim they're anti-corruption. And yet this is the key. This is the key that will bring the wall of corruption down. I didn't see it at first. When my film first came out and I found this footage, it's in my book at Sabrell.com. I rushed this footage I found of them faking being halfway to the moon. I was working for NBC News. I showed it to the news director. He practically fainted. He says, oh my gosh, this absolutely proves they didn't go to the moon. I said, yeah, what are we going to do? He says, I won't broadcast this. I'm not going to go down in history as the man who caused the next Civil War. 10 years go by, a new news director comes in, they find the footage, they call me up, they fly me to the Waldorf Astoria, put me up in the hotel, pay me thousands of dollars for the exclusive license to broadcast this footage nationwide. They're going to break the story nationwide that the moon missions are fake, and here's the proof of it. They get a call from the federal government threatening them, I think turn off their satellite or something, and they back down. And I didn't see it. I didn't think it's going to cause a civil war. I mean, I think you're overreacting. But about a month ago, I think it would bring down the corruption. Even though it killed fewer people than just, you probably know this, Richard, the JFK witness assassination list, like 200 people had accidents within a year, something outrageous. And of course, 3,000 on 9/11, and maybe 20 people were killed to cover this up, much fewer. But it's different. It's a positive lie.
The
And you're
noble lie.
taking away that candy and giving the public a big pile of manure instead. They prayed for them. They got down on their knees and they cried and they wept and they waved the flag. It was a completely unnecessary lie that they did for the same reason Clinton did his little escapade, because they could get away with it. It shows the utter arrogance. And then, mind you, I got a millionaire backing me, right? There was stuff I uncovered that I was asked not to put in a funny thing happened on the way to the moon that's in my book that you can read now at Sabrell.com, because certain people have died and they don't mind me releasing the information, including a 4-hour interview I did with the widow of the man who was going to be the first man to walk on the moon. And she told me that he came home from work on January 26, 1967, and said the following: "Hon, for some strange reason, the CIA is all over the launch pad today inspecting the equipment. Why is the CIA here? Never seen them here in 5 years. Why are they here now?" Very next day, the guy's dead from faulty equipment, because days earlier, he held an impromptu press conference without permission and took a bunch of reporters up to the very top of the rocket where he affixed a lemon the size of a grapefruit that his wife told me he picked from his own backyard, and said, "This thing is a lemon. This thing is a piece of junk." The CIA went to his house, confiscated all his reports he was given to a senator about how they are no way going to keep the moon schedule, and they took him out of his house without even informing his widow that he had died a few minutes earlier. They took him down, which means our tax dollars not only paid to be deceived, we paid the salaries of CIA agents and the hardware to kill our own citizens. Now, our country is founded because of the Declaration of Independence. When any government becomes destructive of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. So starting a new government is legal. It says so in our first document. They're killing their own people. I think that's destructive to life, don't you think? They're murdering Apollo astronauts to cover up the moon landing fraud, and they have these naive people sending me hate mail defending the criminals who are killing their brothers and sisters and deceiving them with their own money.
Bart, I got to
because
jump
they
in.
want to believe in the glorious moon landing.
Bart, we're going to take a quick time out. We'll come back and discuss further. Bart Sabrell, Moon Man, the true story of a filmmaker on the CIA hit list. Stay with us. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. There you go, Bart. That liner's just for you. The truth will set you free, but first it'll tick you off. Um, can we go back to Eugene Akers at the Cannon Air Force Base? First of all, I'm a Canadian. I don't know, where is the Cannon Air Force Base?
It's in Clovis, New Mexico. Now, my father was in the Air Force, and I'd never heard of the thing. I had to look it up. It's tiny, which is great for fewer eyewitnesses. And get this, every division of the military, the Army, the Navy, Marines, Air Force, they have their intelligence division, special operations. Guess where their headquarters is? Cannon Air Force Base. And then I remember Bill Casing, that my main source of the moon landings being fraudulent, him saying, the whole thing was supervised by the United States Air Force. So there you go.
So the gentleman we see on your website, Sibrel.com, and he's talking about his father, because Eugene was like 13 years old. He grew up on the base. His father is like involved in base security, right?
That's right.
So his father also did a deathbed confession, but that was destroyed. Was that computer confiscated, I believe?
Yeah, basically, when I started this investigation, the man's son, the father had already died, and the son was dying himself of cancer. So it's kind of like a double deathbed confession. And after he talked to me, I think I mentioned this. I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the book or not, but I've already said in an interview, so I can say it again. Basically, some good guys asked me to call two people on that list that I got, basically to tell them before I published the book that I have their name on a list that they were at Cannon Air Force Base participating in the fake moon landing fraud. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You want me to slit my throat? But they said, trust us. So I did. I called Eugene Krantz and I called one other guy I'd never heard of. And a couple of days after I did that, my source's house was broken into. So one of these two people called the CIA and tried to put an end to this information leaking out. And then a few days after that, CIA agents showed up personally to him and threatened him face to face to kill him and his family if he ever spoke again about his father's participation in the falsification of the moon landings. This triggered a White House investigation supervised by the press secretary. It also was investigated by the United States Senate Intelligence Committee for overreach or whistleblower protection or something, and the FBI was involved to give this man whistleblower protection. And no one denied that what he said was true, because we know it to be true. We verified the people on this list were there. One of them admitted it, boasted about it in his autobiography. It was at Cannon Air Force Base in June of 1968 for a classified reason. And this is a guy on the payroll of the intelligence department. And so we have this verified, and it's amazing that more people aren't making a story about this. More people, you would think, even as a curiosity. I remember, you may remember this, Richard, like 10, 20 years ago, there was a story on, one of those stories of interest, lighter side, because some curator of a museum in the Netherlands watched a funny thing happen on the way to the moon. And he thought, oh, that footage really convinced him the moon missions are fake. Well, in his museum was a rock, allegedly from the moon. In fact, Neil Armstrong said out of his own mouth, he personally picked up this rock on the moon, put it in his pocket, and saved it for the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. And then they immediately took it, put it in this hermetically sealed box that they presumed would never be opened. He opened it up one night by himself, put it under a microscope, and it's a piece of petrified wood. Now, unless there are trees growing on the moon, a petrified wood kind of looks weird. Is it a rock? Is it, what is it? That's why they selected it to look eerie, out of this world. So it made the news 20 years ago, a lighter side, moon rock proves to be fake, but no one wonders, okay, so if the moon rocks are fake, what about the moon missions? You see? And yet the AI is so detrimental. I mean, you could say there is a creation versus evolution, right? And you could say one side might be called, quote, science, although that's politicized and emotionalized as well. We're all people, right? And you could say the God of science is putting a man on the moon, right? What greater achievement of science is there? And you could say the Messiah of science would be the AI. When their own Messiah says that the moon landings are fake, that could convince a bunch of intellectuals that the moon missions are fake, even though a lot of them want to, believe in the glory of science. They're very pragmatic, a lot of them. And so they squashed that story to the best of their ability. And that's breaking news. Even if there's only two choices, right? Either Google's multi-million, billion-dollar, 10-year investment is just a piece of junk. They're so inept. Poor Google doesn't know what they're doing. It made a mistake, right? Or the moon landings were faked, right? So which do you think is more likely?
Yeah.
Right?
All of the Apollo missions to the moon shot in Clovis, New Mexico at the Cannon Air Force Base?
I don't think so. I think the first one was because they wanted it on American soil for security reasons, and they wanted it at a small base, and they wanted it at an Air Force base, and they wanted it at the Special Ops headquarters. But once people accepted that they could go to the moon and back, it was actually easier to fool people. Most of the photographic anomalies are actually in the later missions, where they should have gotten better at faking it, but they actually left many more mistakes in the pictures, because once people accept it, it's very hard for them to think critically about it. It appears that some of the later missions that involved large landscapes, maybe the moon rover driving, were shot in England at an old dirigible hangar from World War II. And there were some sets that I didn't know this. The AI, recently proved that they were miniature sets. I mean, this vast landscape of the moon that looked like, half a mile across was really probably, 10, 12 feet across. And it was a miniature, that the astronaut was literally a doll. And this is what a lot of people said about the moon rover footage, that it looked like literally a remote controlled car for a number of reasons. And I couldn't quite see that, but the AI did see it. So, this is pretty interesting that the truth is coming out, and it's so shocking. There's that story of the finger out of the dike, right? I don't even know how that story begins or ends, but if you put your finger in that hole, you'll save the, dike, dam, levee from coming down. But if you take it out, start squirt just a little bit, then it gets a little bit bigger, then a few pebbles come through, then a few rocks, then a big hole you can get your hand through, and then it just crumbles away and it can't be stopped. My hope is and prayer that this AI is that finger out of the dike. I mean, what more can you say? The most intelligent entity on Earth said the moon pictures are fake. No one thinks that's significant, right?
Art, another quick timeout. Back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.
But if you take it out, start squirt just a little bit, then it gets a little bit bigger, then a few pebbles come through, then a few rocks, then a big hole you can get your hand through, and then it just crumbles away and it can't be stopped. My hope is that, and prayer, that this AI is that finger out of the dike. I mean, what more can you say? The most intelligent entity on Earth said the moon pictures are fake. No one thinks that's significant, right?
Art, another quick timeout. Back with more in a moment.
The truth goes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as self-evident. You're listening to Richard Syrett's Strange Planet.
I guess we're in phase 2 of the truth, violently opposed. Moon Man, the true story of a filmmaker on the CIA hit list, Bart Sibrel, is with us. And of course, you'll know him from his wildly successful documentaries, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon and Astronauts Gone Wild. Let's talk about the truth being violently opposed. Subtitle of your book, A Filmmaker on the CIA Hit List. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, seeing how this is my last, the book is formal statement on the matter, you could say, for history, I went ahead and I disclosed multiple things that have never been disclosed before. One, that 3 astronauts that we know of, and more than likely, were murdered by the CIA. And it's not my opinion. It's the opinion of the dead man's widow and the dead man's son. And then we have that deathbed confession of an eyewitness who saw them filming the moon landing. That's new. And then so is my kind of behind the scenes adventures in producing this movie. I'm producing it, Richard, under the theory it might be true that they faked it. I mean, the shadows intersect, and 2 of the 3 astronauts won't give an interview, it seems, and their behavior at the one and only press conference looks like they're at a funeral of their mother instead of the winning locker room of the Super Bowl. It just seems something's off about it. And so it took 7 years to make A Funny Thing Happen on the Way to the Moon. I spent probably 4,000 hours editing the 45-minute film. And when I found that footage, basically, I was trying to show the launch in real time, at least minus a minute to plus a minute, something but it's all edited. Everything from NASA is already edited. Even the launch jumps from 5 minutes to 1 minute to 10 seconds. And so I start scouring all the NASA archives. I tell them basically, I'm doing a documentary about the moon landings, which is true. And I said, I'm very thorough. So send me everything you've got from the first mission, every film clip, every video clip, and every still picture. And I figured if they faked it, they're more likely to have made a mistake the first time they faked it, because they never faked it before. And lo and behold, as I exhaustively go through these, I stopped really going through them because it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's like, why bother, right? There's very little footage, very little pictures. In fact, of an astronaut standing on the surface of the moon from the first mission, there's only like 20 pictures. And never in any mission a picture with the Earth over the background like the Eiffel Tower in Paris, because they couldn't fake the rotation of the Earth and the cloud cover matching the satellite photographs and all that stuff. So they just never talked about that, when that would be the most obvious picture you would take if you were really there. So I pop in this tape looking for the countdown, and it says do not show to the public on the screen. I'm like, oh, this should be good. I hit fast forward, and I'm used to watching things at 20 times normal speed, and I see it's the same shot for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And I'm like, what is this? So I rewind it, I hit play. You hear NASA saying the TV picture looks great, and then there's dead air of 4 seconds, and then you hear talk, and then Neil Armstrong speaks. Well, it's not NASA and it's not the astronauts. Someone is prompting the astronauts. They're actually trying to create a 4-second radio delay. They're really only 250 miles above the Earth, where the space station is today, which is the limit they can send astronauts 54 years later. What a surprise. And that's as far as they went then, because it's as far as they can go now. But if they answer right away, it gives away the fact that they're near the Earth. So they were trying to create this fake light distance because they're supposed to be 130,000 miles out in this footage I uncovered. So someone counted off in a private channel earpiece, 1, 2, 3, 4, talk, so he wouldn't jump the gun and give away the fact that he's really close to the Earth. And when I heard that, I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. And then I start looking at the footage, and I'm like, that's not the window. You know, they used like the window to fake the Earth. It's like a 1-foot diameter window. The lights come up, and it's a 1-foot model of the Earth that they're pretending is floating in space to allegedly show they're looking back at the Earth far away, which they never left Earth orbit. And I'm like, well, let me make sure I get this right. They're faking being halfway to the moon, that's for sure. Well, if you're faking being halfway, it's because you can't go halfway, which means you didn't go. And then it just dawns on me, oh my gosh, they really did fake the moon landing. I call it Bill Casey, my source at NASA. I'm like, Bill, they really didn't go. They really didn't go. And he's like, well, Bart, I told you. And I said, no, you don't understand. They really did fake the moon landing. He's like, well, Bart, I told you. It was like, I'm just weeping for humanity. Boy, how low have we gotten that we would do this? And then so that night, I'm followed by church, followed from church by, who knows, CIA agents. I'm literally chased to CNN to get the tape to CNN. I'm surrounded by government agents, drugged with truth serum, and all of this stuff. I go into great detail that I never mentioned because I'm already trying to get people to believe something difficult. The moon landings are fake. I didn't want to go into X-Files adventures, but I figured this is my final statement. So there's a couple of chapters. One is called "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to CNN." The other is "A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Church," where I was literally abducted and drugged, and I escaped their custody. So get this: after they give me truth serum for me to tell them where all the original videotapes of the fake footage are, I make my way back to Nashville and I say, I got them, right? I got truth serum in me. So I pee in a cup and I give it to a friend to put in a lab in his name, thinking I can out with the CIA. Says, I'm going to show this to the news director and prove I was drugged with this exotic drug. I got him. Well, a few days go by, I call up my friend. I say, well, what's the lab result? He says, well, there was a problem at the lab. And I'm like, oh, what problem? He says, well, they had a break-in over the weekend. And I said, well, so what? He says, well, funny thing, the only thing stolen was your urine sample. So the people at the lab are like, we don't know who you are, but please take your business elsewhere. So all these X-Files adventures that would make a movie in and of themselves are in the book for the very first time. And so be it. I mean, you got to understand this death threats against the eyewitness's son was less than 2 years ago. The White House is involved. The Senate is involved. The FBI is involved. This is very serious. And everyone's afraid to admit the truth. The truth will set you free. One of the quotes, I use a famous quote, you've shown some at the end of each chapter. One is from Men in Black 3. And I think it says, the bitterest truth is better than the sweetest lie. We have to love the truth. And why don't we just tell the truth? We made a mistake.
Was it a noble lie told during the Cold War in order to, I don't know, one-upsmanship over the Soviet Union? Why? I mean, I know you say it's because they can, but is there more to it? Is it a noble lie? Did they do it maybe?
No, it's not a noble lie when you widow wives and orphan children.
They can justify that in their minds. They can justify that in their minds.
Well, murderers have a reason why they kill. Thieves have a reason why they steal, and adulterers have a reason why they cheat on their spouse. Doesn't make it right, does it? It doesn't. It's not a noble lie. They could have easily said, look, we set a goal that we cannot achieve. This is going to take more time. I'm sorry. That's what the truth is supposed to be. We're supposed to have leaders who tell us the truth.
I meant a noble lie. Yeah, I meant a noble lie in their minds, that they in their minds, they convinced themselves it's worth the sacrifice. We can kill people.
I mean, if you consider 9/11 a noble lie, that it's worth killing 3,000 people to pass legislation. Maybe that's how certain people can sleep at night. And apparently they do sleep at night, but that doesn't make it right.
Well, of course not.
We need honest government. We need to stop asking permission like we're slaves. permission to travel, permission to have a wedding, permission to go fishing on my own property, permission to open my store, permission to go to church. I mean, that's slavery, people. Hello.
Yeah.
How did this happen? I mean, it's like we're like a puppy dog that is born in a cage, lives its whole life in a cage, and thinks living in a cage is normal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happened. And the moon landing fraud, if the truth comes out about that, Richard, it will infuriate the public to the point of demanding change and an end to corruption.
You mentioned two podcasters that won't touch this. Like Joe Rogan won't go there. Is he one?
Well, I got a call from his or an email from his representative several months ago, but I haven't heard back from him. And then, there's the other one who wears NASA shirts all the time. And because I think he said his uncle, worked at NASA, therefore it must be true. I mean, that's like saying my uncle sold popcorn at the Super Bowl, and therefore he believes the game was legit and not rigged, therefore it wasn't rigged. I don't know what's going on. I mean, maybe people are told what they can and can't talk about. I don't know. I think Joe Rogan's a great guy. I mean, does amazing. I mean, I can't even believe he's allowed on the air, to tell you the truth. And I hope I get a chance to share this on his show. I mean, his Matthew, his representative contacted me, and it would be great because this is important. They really did fake the moon landing. And I met Joe a couple of decades ago. He called me up and said, I want to, support your cause. And what can I do to help? That was 20 years ago. Now he's got this great platform that could help. And I mean, I think he's one of the best podcasters there is, down to earth, open-minded, doesn't really take sides unless it's obvious which side to take. You know what I mean? I'm surprised he's allowed on the air, but maybe this is a touchy subject. I really do believe this is the key. If you really want to reform the federal government, exposing the moon landing fraud is the key. That's the one that the news director saw 20 years ago that I didn't see until a month ago. It will enrage people. This is a positive lie. You're taking it and giving them and we need that outrage in order to demand a change in the government. The truth has to come out that the moon landings are fake, or we'll never have change. You can have a great awakening about everything else, but if people still believe this lie, that there's 1,000 times greater space traveling technology in 1969 than today, for some strange reason, and shadows intersect for some strange reason, an eyewitness says I killed somebody to cover it up for some strange reason, and we have them faking being halfway to the moon for some strange reason, and the AI says it's fake for some strange reason. How much longer are we going to deny this? I mean, come on, people. We need the truth to come out, and I'm all for giving everybody amnesty. If the guy who pulled the trigger on Kennedy's still alive, give him amnesty. We need the truth. We need a new beginning. We need to have government go the opposite direction, not top down, bottom up. A landowner should not be able to be told by the resident association that he cannot grow vegetables in his front yard because it's not aesthetically pleasing. He needs to have supremacy over the resident association, and the mayor can't tell the resident association that they cannot have a gun-free zone or a mandatory carry zone. It's none of his business. He doesn't live there. Right. And then the governor in Sacramento shouldn't be able to tell the mayor in Los Angeles what they can and can't do. You see, if electricity can go left to right down a wire, it can go right to left. And we can have government that's from the bottom up. We need to have self-government and do it backwards. This top down is no different than tyranny. It's the same system we've been using forever. That doesn't work. Look at the mess that we're in. From top down, we have to ask permission to go to church, permission to open my business, permission to have more than 5 people at my son's birthday party, because 4 is okay, but 5 I'll get arrested. Who is this one group of people telling another group of people what they can and can't do at their children's birthday party when they're not even there? It's none of their business. They can advise us. I don't care if 9 out of 10 people are dropping dead. You still have 10% of the people who need to buy tuna fish and toilet paper, and 10% of the business owners who need to make a living, right? It's your life. Take your risk. They're either our parents, which they're not, or they're our masters and we're the slaves. And that's what it is, right? We're in a cage, people. Don't you realize that?
Bart Sibrel, Moon Man, the true story of a filmmaker on the CIA hit list. Bart, A great pleasure. Thank you so much for this.
Oh, no problem. And just go to Sabrel.com. You can watch a funny thing happen on the way to the moon for free.
All right. The link is in the episode notes. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Serrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Serrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Serrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Hey, welcome once again to another special edition of Strange Planet. And if you want to feel great and live your best life in 2024, take C60 Evo organic oils daily and maximize your full potential. And here, once again, our good friends Patty Greer and Chris Burris. Welcome. Happy February. Happy Valentine's Day, belated.
Happy Valentine's
Thank you, Richard.
Day to you.
Thank you for having us.
You know, not everyone has a special someone, man or woman in their life, but they've got a special dog or a special cat. And we don't we talk a little bit about how great C60 Evo is, ESS 60 is for cats and dogs, but you've got some interesting products for your cats and dogs, right, Patty?
We do. We found that I found that my friends that had the olive oil at their house, whenever they take their spoonful in the morning, mom and dad, their dogs would go because they got to lick the spoons clean. And they said, "Oh my God, Bella, the 15-year-old dog is not limping anymore from licking the spoon. What's in your formula?" So I called the lab and I was like, "We got to get on this. Dogs are really, and so we did. We took the olive oil, which is our strongest one, and we put in a little bacon essence, natural bacon essence, and dogs are like clamoring. But in the last week, I have had 2 of my favorite testimonials, one of them about 2 hours ago. This gentleman that I was talking to said, we had 2 black labs. One of them was this kind of freak dog that was 170-pound black lab. And I was like, they don't come that big. And he said, yeah, he was an abnormal one. And then we've got the little one that's only 100 pounds. And I'm like, 100-pound black lab, that's huge. He said, but the big one had dysplasia, the back hips, and he was really having a hard time getting around. And last year we had almost decided to put him down. And then we got the C60 Evo for dogs. And he started taking it, and all of a sudden he wasn't even limping anymore. And because of your product, he said to me, we got another year with our dog.
Oh, wow. Wow. You can't put a price on that. Can't put a price on that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And what I love about pet testimonials is, we are sophisticated creatures and we can actually trick ourselves into believing that something is working, right? That placebo effect, which is something you might be concerned about with any new supplement you're trying. But when it comes to pets, like there is no placebo effect. They are, quote unquote, not smart enough to outsmart their health. And if they're feeling better, and clearly this dog was, it's just because they're feeling better, not because they got the little dropper that morning.
Fantastic. And the cats love it too, right?
Cats love it too. Theirs has salmon essence. And a lot of my friends have told me that the cats now, they just sit there almost with their arms crossed waiting. If they don't put the drops on, it's like, I'm not having that until you season it properly with the salmon essence. But, all of a sudden the mangy cats are getting shiny fur, and the cats that were lethargic and stiff are all of a sudden moving better. And I'll say for an old granny like me, I use it as a lubrication in my joints like an old Mercedes. I feel like that's, if I was going to be a car, I'm an old Mercedes. But if you don't put good oil in it, you're not going to get good movement and good flow and longevity out of all your parts. And the body is much the same as a finely tuned vehicle, except we're even more finely tuned. But what I'm finding is not only the energy and flexibility when I take this every day, but the mental focus at a time like this when your country is completely going nuts because your leader is, and our country, which is completely going nuts because our leader is just like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know which country is suffering more because of the people in power or that appear to be, but keeping my brain solid and focused has amazed me. When my friends call me at 10 or 11 in the morning and I'm like, I've done 3 hours of work already. I've written ads. I've done and they're like, slow down. How's your brain working this fast in the morning? And it's because I wake up, can't wait to have my morning cup of coffee, and I put in it the MCT coconut oil. Now, honestly, which we are, it's half as strong as the olive oil, but to start my day, this is my ticket. A lot of people actually put the olive oil in their coffee. It is twice as strong, but I just do the MCT because it tastes so good, and I put in twice as much.
There you go. Yeah, coconut in the coffee makes sense. Olive oil, I love the olive oil, but I'm not going to put that in my coffee. Hey, to each his own. You mentioned Joe Biden. He could use a couple of big bottles of this. I'm not a Joe Biden fan, but nobody wants to see the elderly suffer that way.
Help a guy out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you talk about mental focus. Why does it work that way? Why does it give us renewed such mental energy and mental focus?
Yeah, I think well, there's a couple important things that our product probably does, right? And we're still theoretical. We're working this out. We just know that in the original study, the test subjects lived 90% longer than the control group. The test subjects died without tumors, which is not typical for, in this case, it was Wistar rats. So there's a lot of positive things going on already. When you think about, our most consistent testimonial, just to share, is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. Obviously, sleep has a positive impact on your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. So that's certainly a component of it. I know we've talked before, and I don't want to get into all the details about the BOSS theory, right? The buffering oxidative stress system. The fact that this ESS60 molecule is a great antioxidant, the fact that, and this is from peer-reviewed published research, both of these facts, it's a great antioxidant and it gets into the mitochondria. Those are key components. When you start thinking about, and I was kind of putting together some ideas for better understanding the mental energy and focus piece of our testimonial, right? We've done a small scale study. We've got 100% of the people report improvements in their sleep when they're on the product. So we kind of have that checked. We're going to continue to expand that study. But why the focus and energy, right? And we know kind of from the BOSS theory that it has positive impacts in mitochondria. So that kind of makes sense. But when you start thinking about the brain, and really we're talking, the medical community is becoming more and more aware of this gut-brain axis, this connection between your gut, which has its own enteric nervous system. So there's a whole nervous system that they call it the second brain because it's the second largest collection of neurons in our physical bodies, right? And between those is the vagus nerve. This is one of the 12 cranial nerves that come down from the brain. And one of them, the vagus nerve, goes directly to that enteric nervous system. It turns out that you actually have this. I know this is a long story, but we'll get there. Bear with me. It turns out that we have 90% of the communication between your gut and your brain is going from your gut to your brain, not from your brain to your gut. So your brain isn't telling your gut what to do. Your gut is telling your brain what's going on and what to do about it, right? So it's really in charge. This is why if you've ever been on kind of a restrictive diet and found yourself not craving sweets, like most people have had kind of that experience, it's because the gut bacteria in your stomach that tend to crave sweets have now diminished. And so their tickling of the nerves, their communication to the brain is no longer going, hey, give me sweets, give me sweets, give me sweets, because their voice has been very greatly diminished in your gut biome. So this is really important. So we'll talk about that first. We recommend the product in olive oil. Olive oil is amazing for your gut biome. It increases the ratio and actually feeds the good gut bacteria that's in your stomach, right? So that's incredibly important. It manages pathogens in your gut, and also it's a great antioxidant for what's going on in your gut. So that's great. This product helps your gut. Now think about the brain. The brain, each of the nerve cells has 2 million mitochondria in it.
Wow.
Right? That's 2 million of these energy producing organelles in each of your neurons. And we already told you, right? This is a great antioxidant that gets into the mitochondria. It performs beneficial processes inside of the mitochondria. And so we really think, and we know it can cross the blood-brain barrier. So not only is it crossing the blood-brain barrier, it's getting into these mitochondria and supporting how they function. And that really is a good, solid explanation of, okay, energy, you're improving the mitochondria. That's the energy source of every cell in your body. And then focus, that's your brain's improving 2 million of the organelles in each of your neurons. That really is the theory that we hang our hat on, which also goes on your head, when it comes to why we're seeing these improvements.
It'd be interesting to see some studies on, there's a lot of talk about Joe Biden taking a cognitive test. And I remember Donald Trump talking, he took a cognitive test, and he talked about the second part, which is a little harder, where they give you a list of things and you have to repeat them back and in order. So that's kind of one of the fundamental aspects of the cognitive test. It'd be interesting to see how people perform on these cognitive tests with and without the ESS 60, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I'd be fascinated. I think, and we could even do that in parallel to, similar to the way that we're continuing to do the sleep study, which is, we get customers, we get 10 days of data, of survey data about their sleep before they even try the product, and then 10 days of data while they're on it, and then 10 days of data when they go back off of it, and then 10 days of data when they go back on it. And like I said, 100% of the participants have reported improvements in their sleep. So you might want to do the same type of thing. Like, let's do this study, before we try the product. Let's kind of saturate, because there is some understanding that there might be a saturation process for our system, especially if you're trying to address 2 million, right, mitochondria in each of your nerve cells and each of your brain cells. So you want to go through some saturation period and run that test again. I think that would be fascinating.
C60 Evo offers breakthrough anti-aging formulas for skin and lips and hair renewal and your brain, body healing, deeper sleep for you and your pets. C60evo.com/strange-planet. Use EVRS at checkout. Another way to save, you get another 10% off. That's C60evo.com/strange-planet. And again, the code EVRS. To get 10% off at checkout. What else is going on at the website, Patty, vis-a-vis web specials?
Well, we have our best offer that's constant is 20% off if you sign up for a monthly subscription. And that way you can put your data in once and then you get it every month. And if you don't love it, cancel it anytime. Phone call, email. We're not built to tell you no. We shut you right down if you don't love it, but most people don't cancel. And we have really long, loyal customers because the product works. When I look at the two of you, I know your ages. And for me, when I look at people selling a product, I'm like, do I want to age like them? And for me, that's a real visible testimonial that's authentic here now. And I know your age, and you never get sick, and you don't have any gray hair, Richard, and your skin is beautiful and fresh. And I'm thinking, you are like our poster man for C60 Evo. You may have come from amazing healthy blood, but it doesn't hurt when you're taking a product that doesn't have a bunch of trash and chemicals in it. And we've really stepped up the game with really good cold pressed oils, all organic. And our facial serum is 21 natural organic vegan products that are absolutely delicious. If you buy an inside and out set, which is the oil you take on the inside and then you put this on your skin, or inside and out in lips, we have all kinds of different product groupings, you'll save 15%. So 15% discount for any grouping of products, and our store is full of fun groups. Richard's code to get another 10% off at checkout. The biggest discount is if you buy a case of 12 products, 25% off. And best deal of all, 25% off for a case. Use Richard's code EV for Evo, RS for Richard Serrett, and you're going to get a banging deal. Now, people that travel that say, oh God, they took my oil at, checkout because I do the carry-on, we make these capsules, and everybody that travels loves these because you can throw them in a baggie, take as many as you want on the plane, and they're not going to take them out of your hand. So we recommend, people start with a small amount, but a lot of people, they'll look at the website and they'll see these collection sets and they think, oh, it's so expensive, but it's really not. And it's not when you think of how many supplements most people have on their counter and what you spent and how much they work. I know that I've taken the big arm swing, cleared the counter. And I think a lot of women, when they read the bottle of their facial serum and they go, oh no, I can't pronounce half that stuff. It's like, yeah, no. So the guys at the lab, Chris calls me one day, like a year after we put out our facial serum, which comes in this gorgeous box. And then when you take it out, here's a full one. The one I showed you is almost empty because it's mine. This one I took out of the box because it's going to be my new one. But I love the stuff. Smells like rosemary. Really makes your skin feel good. But when I first presented it to the guys at the lab, they're like, facial serum, really? We're a bunch of guys. And then a year later, Chris saw that number one, his skin is looking like spanky fresh, and his wife loves it, and all of my friends love it, and our skin's like anti-aging. So Chris calls and he goes, okay, I know I was a fudge buster last year about the facial serum, but the guys and I have been testing this peptide product, which has 30 years of research, like our ESS60 has 30 years of research, and we've got this new product. So I was like, I'm not mad. I think it's fabulous. We have two different facial serums. They both serve incredible purposes, but why two bottles? So he said, I know how picky you are. You don't want emulsifiers. You don't want chemicals. And the only way we could decide to get around it was to separate the oil and the water into two separate bottles. And this is really a cool product because it's blue with peptides. And Chris usually models it, and that's why his skin looks like he should get carded. But
I'm happy to model it.
Oh, good. Look how blue, like what a bizarre, amazing thing to put on your face. And we know why, it's a copper peptide. But when you freshly activate in your palm, then we don't need to do the emulsifiers or chemicals. So the instructions come, they tell you a few drops of this, a few drops of that, activate it fresh, put it on your face, and you are going to see impressive skin and improvements. Now, something I've heard about this one is that mosquito bites. This is really good for that also.
Oh, really?
I don't know which of the items is in it, but somebody said to me, I was trying everything, I was completely losing my mind. And I put on your facial serum, and all of a sudden the mosquito bites stopped itching. So I think that the ESS60 that we make just about helps everything. I remember in the beginning you said, oh my God, my vision. I used to have really bad night vision with the glaring lights, and the ESS60 helped you. Does it still seem that that's working?
Yes. My night vision is much better. Oncoming headlights in the rain, the worst. I used to dread it. I would avoid, and one of my sons recently got his beginner's permit. So he always wants to drive it. No, I'm good. I'm driving. I'm a nervous passenger. I'm a nervous passenger, but I have no reservations now about driving at night in the rain. And of course, I told you about what happened with my left eye, which since the time I was born, it was like 40% vision, and never any improvement over like 50 years. And then all of a sudden, a couple of years ago, I went to get my yearly checkup, and she kind of did a double take. She said, "What? Wait a minute, that's odd. Your left eye, the vision improved." It wasn't like I'm not going to get rid of my glasses. It wasn't a huge amount, but it's not supposed to happen. There was an improvement in the left eye.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
not
Penny
the first.
Kelly,
Go ahead, Patty.
Penny Kelly, she also had an incredible vision improvement, and she's written 20-something books. She's constantly reading, incessant reader and writer. And she said, all of a sudden, once I started the ESS 60, I was losing my reading glasses all over the house because I don't need them anymore. And so I'd take them off, put them down, and then it was like autopilot. I'd start working and I'd realize, where's my glasses? Oh, wait, I don't need them. And so she had to like readjust her thinking. That's impressive to me. So for Chris, he does the science. For me, I'm the woo-woo. And so I say what it feels like or what it seems like. But what it seems like is we've got this molecule that's so intuitive that it goes to the place that you need it. And today I looked at something on my body that was recent stitches, and they were not very good looking a week ago. And all of a sudden, I can't even see them almost. It's like, oh, no way. No way. And yesterday wasn't that way. Today it is. And I'm like, was that a dream? And so all I can say is, in my experience, I have had miracles with the C60 Evo. And that's why I'm partners with Chris and Robert. There's only one lab in the world that's been making it for decades. There's only one guy that's written a book on ESS 60, Chris, and we've done all the supplying the products to the peer-reviewed research tests. And pretty much it's the only lab that's been active with research about it. And it won the Nobel Prize 5 years after Chris and Robert invented their own version of the machine that makes ESS 60, that burns graphite rods at the heat of the sun. Not an easy job. The thing probably weighs tons. I've seen it with my own eyes and scratched my head like, really? That's how you make C60 Evo? That's amazing. They've been at it 32 years. And some guy sent us a very funny testimonial yesterday, and he says, 32 years. Yeah, right. He looks 40.
It's true. You do. You look 40. Feel great and live your best life in 2024. Take C60 Evo organic oils daily, inside and out, and maximize your full potential. C60evo.com/strange-planet and use the code EVRS at checkout and get an additional 10% off. Chris, Patty, great to talk to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Well.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.